Have you ever felt that as a Muslim woman, there are not enough Islamic programs out there dedicated to just you? Have you ever had questions run through your mind about your role as a Muslim woman, your rights and responsibilities, or just general matters? Just Us Women is a program dedicated to you, the Muslim woman. Islam Life Radio has tailored Just Us Women to meet the needs of our Muslim sisters in order for them to gain authentic knowledge. Our host and teacher for this program, Ummu Maahir Ismaa'eel, will deliver and expand your minds on various topics related to women's fiqh, motivational talks, and how to be among the best women to earn Allah Azza wa Jal's pleasure in this life and the next, insha'Allah. So be sure to join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Just Us Women, brought to you by IslamLifeRadio.com.
Have you ever thought about what it takes to know the ledge? People say, know the ledge. What does that exactly mean? Well, let me see if I can sum it up for you in a short poem. Now is the time to show greatness and uplift. With knowledge and wisdom, we share the ultimate gift. We recognize our Creator who provides and sustains us, who gives our life balance and constantly maintains us. Our broadcast to the people is molded by truth. For the men and the women, and especially the youth, we reach out to those from all walks of life, no matter where you come from and no matter the type. Our goal is quite simple, and that's education and unity. With a smile and the salams, we embrace our community. There is no secret to success, just a desire to learn, because the blessings of Allah is what we seek to earn. So lend us an ear and bring an open mind, and be cautious, not careless, and be aware of the times. All it takes is one slip if you're living on life's edge, and unfortunately some fall because they don't know the ledge.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Are you experiencing a difficult situation? Going through stress, anxiety, confusion, or even depression? Perhaps something's troubling you and you don't know who to ask and where. Maybe you've done a sin and you don't know how to deal with it to make everything better and redeem yourself. You might even be wanting to consider marriage and have someone in mind, but don't know how to take the matter forward in a halal way. Are you looking for advice and guidance, which is also Islamically sound and authentic? If so, then your prayers have been answered. Islam Life Radio is now offering a free, confidential, anonymous, impartial, and non-judgmental counseling service based on the Quran and authentic Sunnah. Email us now at counseling@islamliferadio.com.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى صحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters. Welcome to part 12 of the series of Fataawaa al-Mar'a. And in this segment this week, we begin with questions regarding breastfeeding in Islam and issues regarding it. So before we turn to that issue specifically, or the two specific questions regarding it, I just wanted to give some background information regarding Rida in Islam. I'm just taking this information here from a summary of Islamic jurisprudence by our Sheikh Dr. Saleh Al-Fawzan. So the Sheikh mentioned regarding Rida or breastfeeding, he said, Allah exalted be, he says, concerning women, one is forbidden to marry. And he brings the ayah from An-Nisa, which is chapter 4, verse 23. As it is interpreted, your milk mothers who nursed you, your sisters through nursing. And then his Shaykh commented, this is also demonstrated in the prophetic hadith as it is related in the two authentic books of Bukhari and Muslim. So as it is demonstrated in the prophetic hadith related in the two authentic books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, from the Prophet ﷺ, all things which become unlawful because of blood relations or unlawful because of the corresponding foster breastfeeding relations. And also the Shaykh said that he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also said in a hadith related by the group of compilers of hadith, what is unlawful because of blood relations is also unlawful because of the corresponding foster breastfeeding relations. So linguistically, breastfeeding rida refers to sucking milk at the breast or drinking it when the milk is in a container. Legally, the term refers to sucking milk at the breast or drinking it in another way by a child less than 2 years of age, provided that the milk results from pregnancy. As for the rulings on foster breastfeeding relations, they are treated like blood relations and marital affairs. Being alone with the woman, being a mahram, meaning a woman's husband or any unmarriageable kin of hers. So this is the idea of breastfeeding or breastfeeding in terms of another wet nursing, another child. It has a much serious implications in Islam than it does elsewise. And this is why I wanted to just mention this matter, the seriousness of it, before that we even look at these questions that are related to it. So as the questions come in the book, then it was asked, breastfeeding after menopause is treated like the same as breastfeeding in earlier years. So Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah was asked, what is the ruling concerning a woman who has reached the age of menopause and she breastfeeds a child 5 sucklings or more during the first 2 years of that child's life? Does this breastfeeding make them illegal for each other and all the other ramifications, giving him a foster father even though the breastfeeding woman may be without a husband? So the Sheikh responded by saying, rahimahullah, breastfeeding makes forbidden what blood relations make forbidden. Therefore, the breastfeeding mentioned in the question, 5 sucklings in the first 2 years, makes the woman a breastfeeding mother to the child due to that breastfeeding. So again, makes this a woman a wet nurse mother to this child due to that breastfeeding. This is based on the generality of the verse, which is found in Surah An-Nisa, ayah 23. As it is interpreted, forbidden to you for marriage are your ummahatukum from rada', your foster mothers, because of she gave you suck, or she gave you breastfeeding. She breastfed you. This is which is better interpreted, because she breastfed you. So the Sheikh wanted to say that even if the milk was produced after she reached the age of menopause, the ruling is the same. If that woman was married, the child would be her foster child and the son of the one whom the milk is ascribed to. If she was not married, perhaps she was not married and produced milk, then she is the foster mother of that child and he has no foster father. The Sheikh went on to say, do not consider it strange that one may have a milking mother and not a foster father. Also, do not consider it strange that one may have a foster father but no foster mother. An example of the first case is where a woman gave 2 sucklings to a child, the milk that was the result of her first husband. Then she separated from that husband and married another after her waiting period expired. She becomes pregnant and has a child from the second husband. She then suckles her foster child again for the remainder of the suckling amount with the milk that resulted of a child with the second husband. She now has become that child's foster mother due to the 5 sucklings, but he has no foster father because he did not suckle at least 5 sucklings that were the result of one man with the woman. And as for the second case, this is where the child has a foster father but no foster mother. An example is where a man has 2 wives. One of them suckles the child twice and the other suckles the child 3 times. In that case, he will be a foster child of the husband, since he was breastfed over 5 times from the milk that was the result of intercourse with him. But he will not have a foster mother because neither the first nor the second woman suckled him the minimum amount of times required. So we want to think about this because, again, this regarding wet nursing in Islam and how we see it in the West are two different things here. This is very serious legal rulings here that affect the affairs of people. So we have to be careful of this. When you're talking about 5 sucklings, that there has to be at least 5 sucklings, 5 full sucklings when he has the child has wet nursed from this wet nurse mom 5 feedings, meaning that he has fed to his content on 5 different occasions. This now bonds them as just as it was his natural mom or her natural mom, and it has an effect legally regarding these affairs. Now the next question was presented to Sheikh Ibn Jabrin. My mother was breastfed by a woman who had co-wives. Are the children of those co-wives considered my brothers or not? The Sheikh Rahimahullah responded by saying, that breastfeeding woman is considered your foster mother by virtue of her breastfeeding your mother. Her husband is the foster father of your mother and your maternal grandfather. Therefore, her co-wives are treated the same as the wives of your maternal grandfather. The co-wives' children are your maternal uncles and aunts and the siblings of your mother. Since their father is your grandfather, they are the children of your grandfather and your paternal aunts and uncles from breastfeeding. So just remember, particularly our new sisters in Islam, because we tend to do this, even in the West, we got the breastfeeding banks and all this kind of thing. Breast milk banks rather, and all this kind of stuff. Breast milk is a very serious affair. If you are feeding another woman's child from your breast milk, be careful that you don't do it 5 complete sucklings unless you're doing it for a reason. And if you do that, then just be aware of the fact that that child now becomes like your natural child, and it does affect the affairs of the children in the future. So now we turn to questions related to divorce. We have moved on now. We have looked at marriage. We've been through last week relations between the spouses, and now we look at divorce. So the first question has been posed to Sheikh Ibn Jabrin, rahimahullah, and it mentions. So the question was posed. My husband wants to marry a second wife and informed me of that. I refused. My reasoning was that he is not in need of that since I have given him children and fulfill his rights. So I said to him, in that case, divorce me. Am I in the right? So the Sheikh responded by saying, you do not have the right to prevent him from marrying again, no matter what your actions are toward him. He may desire more children, or he may feel that having only one wife does not keep him completely chaste. In any case, the wife does not have the right to keep him from marrying another. However, if she fears that she will treat the other wife unfairly, or she believes that she will not be able to live with a co-wife, then she may seek divorce due to that need. It is not allowed to seek a divorce without the presence of a necessity. So let's keep in mind what the Sheikh says here, and as we go through this, these questions regarding divorce, it will be restated again. The seriousness of divorce or seeking a divorce without the presence of a necessity. This is a very serious matter, sisters. So, and we know how it can be when we're emotional. But from this question, we do realize that we cannot dictate to the husband if he so chooses to take a second wife. That is not our affair. However, if the first wife doesn't feel that she can tolerate this, then as the Sheikh says, then she does have a right to seek a divorce if there is a need. But one more time, be careful to seek a divorce without the presence of a necessity. Now we move now to the next question, which has been posed to Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah. And the Sheikh was asked, a woman was married for many years and did not have any children. After an examination, it was determined that the problem was from her husband and it would be impossible for the two of them to have children. does she have the right to seek a divorce? So Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he said, that woman has a right to ask for divorce from her husband if it is shown that the infertility problem is from him alone. If he divorces her, that is final. If he does not divorce her, a judge may dissolve her marriage. This is because the woman has the right to have children, and many women do not even get married except to have children. If the man she is married to is impotent or sterile, she has the right to ask for divorce and have her marriage dissolved. This is the stronger opinion among these scholars. Sheikh Ibn Jibreel rahimahullah was asked, my older brother married me off without my approval. Even though I stayed with my husband for 6 years, I'm still with him now, and we do not have any children. However, I do not love him, and I would like for him to divorce me. But I heard a hadith whose meaning is, if a woman seeks a divorce due to no harm, she will not enter paradise. What is the solution? So Sheikh Ibn al-Jibreel, he said, since you permitted the actions of your brother and with your husband without preventing it, and then stayed with him for that lengthy period of time, the marriage contract is valid. It is valid due to the implicit permission given. However, since you have found that you find no happiness or tranquility with him, in fact, you have felt unhappiness and dislike and fear that you may not fulfill his rights, and you have not had any children with him, due to those reasons, it is allowed for you to seek a separation. How about the ruling concerning divorcing a menstruating woman and its legal effect? So, regarding this matter, Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah was asked, a mother of 2 children was divorced by her husband, but at the time, the divorce was not in the state of purity. She was not in the state of purity. However, she did not tell her husband that until the time that they went to the judge. She hid that information from him, but not from her mother. The mother told her not to tell the judge, for if she did, the judge would not pronounce the divorce. Afterwards, she stayed with her family, and then she wanted to be reunited with her husband out of fear that her children would grow up lost and uncared for, since their father would not be present. What is the ruling concerning the divorce that took place while she was menstruating? So the sheikh responded by saying, divorce that takes place while the woman is menstruating is disputed among the scholars. Indeed, the discussion over it is quite lengthy. The question is whether it was a divorce that took place or a divorce with no meaning to it whatsoever. The majority of the scholars say that it is a divorce that takes place and has legal effect. That is, it is considered a divorce. But at the same time, the person is ordered to take her back and not to touch her until she becomes pure from the menses and then gets her menses a second time. Then when she becomes pure after the second period, he may either keep her or he may divorce her. This is the approach of the majority of the scholars, including the 4 Imams, Imam Ahmed, Al-Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and Abu Hanifa. However, the strongest opinion we feel is the conclusion of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ajma'in. This is that the divorce said during the menses does not take place and has no legal effect. This is because it goes against what Allah and His Messenger have ordered. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has stated, whoever does a deed that is not in accordance with our affair shall have it rejected. The evidence for the particular case of the menstruating woman. So one more time, the evidence for the particular case of the menstruating woman is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar. He had divorced his wife when she was menstruating. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was informed of that, and he became angry. He said, order him to return to her and then leave her until she becomes pure and then has her menses again and then becomes pure again. At that time, he may keep her or he may divorce her. And also from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, That is the period during which Allah has ordered the women to be divorced. Again, that is the period during which Allah has ordered the women to be divorced. So the Shaykh went on to clarify. So the period in which Allah has ordered women to be divorced is for her to be divorced while she is pure and not having had sexual intercourse with her husband. If he divorces her while she is menstruating, he did not divorce her according to the command of Allah. Therefore, the act is rejected. The divorce that occurs to that woman in this question, in our opinion, is a divorce that did not exist. The woman is still under the marriage contract of her husband. It is regardless of whether he knew that that he divorced her while she was pure or not. His knowledge is not taken into consideration. However, if he knew that she was menstruating, he would be sinful, and the divorce would not take effect. If he was unaware of that fact, the divorce would not have taken effect, but there would be no sin upon the husband. And this again was answered by Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. Now we turn to some questions regarding the iddah. And the iddah is the waiting period of a woman. Her waiting period either during a divorce, after the divorce, she has a waiting period of 3 months, or if it's a khula, then it is a waiting period of a month. And then there is the waiting period of the widow. So this is again a waiting period of 4 months for the widow. And so we look at the questions now that have been posed to the ulama regarding it. We begin with the question, what must the mourning widow abide by? What are the laws by which the widow whose husband had just died must abide by? The Sheikh responded by saying, the hadith states that a mourning widow is prohibited from doing and what she is requested to do. First, she must remain in her house in which she was living when her husband died. She then therein remains there until her iddah or her mourning period comes to an end. This is 4 months and 10 days unless she is pregnant, wherein her mourning period ends when she gives birth. So again, he clarified that the mourning period or the iddah of the widow is 4 months and 10 days. And unless, he said, she is pregnant, when her mourning period ends when she gives birth. And so he brings the evidence from Surah At-Talaq, verse 4. For those who are pregnant, their waiting period is until they deliver. Again, for those who are pregnant, their waiting period, their iddah, is until they deliver. So the Sheikh, he wanted to clarify, and in this case, in Sheikh bin Baz, he wanted to clarify, she does not leave the house except due to need or necessity, such as visiting the hospital due to illness, buying what she is in need of from the market, such as food or other items, if she cannot find others to do such for her. Similarly, if the house is destroyed, she leaves it for another house. Finally, if she does not find anyone who she knows close to her, and she fears for her safety, she may move due to that need. She may move due to that need. Second, the Sheikh said, she may not wear any kind of beautiful clothing, either yellow, green, or other. She must wear clothing which is not beautiful or attractive, regardless of whether it be black, green, or otherwise. The important aspect is that it is not beautiful or attractive. This is what the Prophet ﷺ ordered. Third, she must not wear jewelry, either gold, silver, diamonds, pearls, or anything of that nature. This is regardless of if it be bracelets, chains, or rings. She may not wear anything of this nature until her mourning period is over. Fourth, he said, she must refrain from using perfume. She cannot perfume herself with either incense or any other kind of items that make the body smell good. The only exception to this is when she cleanses herself after her period. In that case, there is no harm if she applies some kind of incense. Fifth, she should not apply kuhul. She can neither use kohl nor anything similar to kohl, which is a beautification for the face, a beautification that may be considered something that attracts people. As for the normal beautification of using water and soap, there is nothing wrong with that. But the kohl, which is a beautification of the eyes and other similar items that women put on their faces, are not to be used. The Sheikh said, these are the 5 items that a woman must attend to when her husband dies. He said, however, there are many other acts that the general masses believe or have fabricated concerning a mourning woman. For example, they say that she cannot talk to anyone. She may not talk on the phone. She can only take a shower once a week. She cannot walk barefoot in her house. She cannot go out under the lights of the moon, and other superstitions that are simply false. There is no basis for any of these. She may walk barefoot or with shoes in her house. She fulfills her needs in the house, such as cooking her food and the food of her guests. She may go out in the light of the moon, on her roof, or in her garden. She may wash herself whenever she wishes. She may speak to anyone she wishes as long as it is not suspicious speech. She may shake hands with women and men she is related to. And as for those men she is not related to, she may not shake their hands. Let me just insert here, one more time for us in the West, this does not mean shaking the hands of cousins. This does not mean shaking the hands of a male cousin, much less embracing him. We're talking about immediate relatives, your brother and so forth, but not cousins. He went on to say, she may remove her headscarf if she is not in the presence of men she is not related to. And so he also said, however, she may not use henna or saffron either on her clothing or in her coffee. This is because saffron is a kind of perfume. It is not allowed for her to perfume herself. She cannot be proposed to. One may indirectly make a statement of intent to her, but a clear proposal is not allowed. So she cannot be proposed to in this mourning period of 4 months, 10 days. However, if someone wants to indirectly just, hint around, then this is, he says here, one may indirectly make a statement of intent to her, but a clear proposal is not allowed. So this was answered by Sheikh bin Baz, again, rahimahullah. We now look at wearing a watch during the mourning period. So the Lajna, the scholars of the Lajna, were asked, is it allowed for a woman to wear a watch to know what time it is and not for the sake of beautification during her mourning period? So the scholars responded by saying, yes, that is allowed for her due to her intention. However, if she even avoids that, they said that would be best because it does resemble jewelry. So one more time, they said it is best to avoid it because the watch does resemble jewelry. So how about some of these really nice watches that we're wearing nowadays? You can get a good looking $10 watch and it might be a timepiece, but it's also a statement piece. So be careful of those, as they're saying, these kinds of watches that are ornamented with the jewels and the this and the that and all the extra. Be careful of such watches during the mourning period of the widow. So they were also asked, the questioner states that his father's wife is pregnant. Is her mourning period due to his father's death, 4 months and 10 days, or is it until she gives birth? They responded by saying, the conclusion of the study of the committee is that her mourning period is until she delivers. So again, for the widow, as soon as she gives birth, her mourning period is over. Now we look at a question that was posed to the Lajna. That goes, a man died and his wife was elderly, over 70 years old, with little ability to think and no servant. He died while she was still married to him. Does she have to go through the mourning period like others? What is the wisdom behind such an act if someone is old like her? Why then is it that the pregnant woman mourns only until she gives birth, implying that the mourning period is just to make certain that the woman is or is not pregnant. In a case like this woman, the possibility is not present. So the scholars responded by saying, the woman mentioned in the question goes through the mourning period of 4 months and 10 days, since she falls under the generality of the words of Allah in Al-Baqarah, verse 234, when Allah stated, as it is interpreted, those of you who die and leave wives behind, they, meaning the wives, shall wait for 4 months and 10 days. So the scholars wanted to explain, from the Sharia, wisdom is the period, the waiting period, and the mourning, even if the woman is old and could not possibly be pregnant, is honoring the seriousness of the marriage contract, raising the status and demonstrating the honorableness of the marriage, and fulfilling the rights of the husband, and showing the effects of one's loss by not beautifying or adorning oneself. Therefore, her mourning in that case is more than her mourning in the case of the death of a father or a child. The ruling concerning a pregnant woman is until she gives birth, based on the generality of Allah's statement as is found in Surah At-Talaq, verse 4. For those who are pregnant, their waiting period is until they deliver. The scholars went on to say, this verse particularizes the generality of the other verse. From Al-Baqarah 234, those of you who die and leave wives behind, they, meaning the wives, shall wait 4 months and 10 days. So they clarified, a wisdom behind relating the end of the waiting period to giving birth is that the pregnancy is the right of the first husband. If she gets married after the first husband's death or other type of separation from him, then she is pregnant, then the second husband may be mixing his sperm with another man's. This is not allowed due to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, it is not allowed for a Muslim man who believes in Allah and the hereafter to water what another has sown with his water. That is, to have intercourse with a woman impregnated by another man. So this was mentioned by Imam Ahmed, Abu Dawood, Ibn Hibban, on the authority of Ruwayfi ibn Thabit al-Ansari. So they concluded by saying it is obligatory upon a Muslim to apply the laws of the Sharia regardless of whether he knows the wisdom behind them or not. He must have belief that Allah regulates what is best and proper in His law and His decrees. However, if Allah blesses one with the knowledge of the wisdom, then that is light upon light and goodness in addition to goodness. So again, this was answered by the standing, very, mashallah, tabarakallah, very wisely answered, very eloquently answered by the ulama of the standing committee. May Allah reward them all with good ameen. Another question was posed to the Lajna regarding the elderly or underage woman mourning period or iddah. So if the question was asked, if the husband of an elderly woman who has no desire for men or a young girl who has not yet reached the age of puberty passes away, do they have to observe the mourning or the waiting period? And again they answered, yes. The elderly woman who has no desire for men must observe the mourning waiting period, as does the young girl who has not yet reached the age of puberty or even has approached that age. She must observe the mourning period if her husband dies until she gives birth, if she be pregnant. Otherwise, they said, it is a period of 4 months and 10 days based on the generality of the verse found in Al-Baqarah 234, as it is interpreted, those of you who die and leave wives behind, they, meaning the wives, shall wait for 4 months and 10 days. And also the verse in At-Talaq, verse 4 again, for those who are pregnant, their waiting period is until they deliver. So I just want to make a quick comment here also, because they do mention here about the young girl who has not reached the age of puberty. I'm seeing on social networks where there is this effort to ban marriages of young girls before the age of puberty. Now, of course, there should be some wisdom used in this, but let's not lose sight of the fact that this is perfectly legal in Islam. And it might not be for everyone for whatever reason. It is your choice, but we are not going to make this ruling that's been decreed by Allah and His Messenger illegal because we are being affected by the people in the West. To marry a young girl before the age of puberty is legal in Islam. And certainly there should be some wisdom by her mahram, whoever her mahram or her wakil is in the affair, her wali. Then of course we expect him to be honorable. We expect him to protect her rights, and that she is not being put into a relationship or a situation that's going to be harmful to her. But at the same time, we're not going to rule it illegal because we are now being scrutinized by the West, or the fact that there may be some people who are abusing this law or this accommodation. We're not going to just say that it's illegal. Oh my God, this is horrible. This is barbaric, and this is that. We're not going to mimic these statements. We stand by the Sharia, but we are going to execute the Sharia with the due diligence and the wisdom in which it deserves. Now, with that said, let's move on. A ruling concerning mourning widow moving from her husband's house to her family's house. So the standing committee was asked. A woman married a man and then he passed away and did not have any children. She has no relatives in the area where her husband lived. Is it allowed for her to move from the land of her husband to the land of her guardian to pass the mourning period there? So the Lajna, or the standing committee, answered by saying, it is allowed for that woman to move to the house of her guardian or any other place in which she feels that she will be safe in order to fulfill the rest of her mourning period for her husband. If this, this is if she fears for herself or for her honor, or she finds no one to protect her. However, if she has no fear, but she just wants to be closer to her family, then this is not allowed for her to move. Instead, she must remain in her place until the time expires. Then she can travel with a male relative wherever she desires. Next question posed to the Lajna. Regarding a student whose husband dies and she continues her studies during her mourning period. So the Lajna was asked, a woman's husband died and now she must observe the mourning waiting period while she is a student. May she continue her studies or not? So they responded by saying, it is obligatory upon the widow to observe the waiting and mourning period in the house she is living in when her husband dies. This is for a period of 4 months and 10 days. She may not stay anywhere else but there. She must avoid anything that beautifies herself and makes her attractive, including perfume, kuhul, attractive clothing, and so forth. It is allowed for her to go out. It is allowed for her to go out during the day if there is a need to do so. Therefore, the student in question may go out to attend her classes due to the need for such. However, she must do so while avoiding everything that a mourning woman must avoid, which may attract men and attract them to propose to her. So again, we get from the legend here that if you are in a situation where you absolutely must go out, then it is permissible to go out as a widow during that 4 months and 10 days, again, observing what needs to be observed, and that is avoiding perfume, attractive clothing, kuhul, and all these kinds of things. So we've heard that from the legend regarding that matter. So now again, they were also asked, a man married a woman and died before consummation. Does she still have to observe the waiting mourning period? So they responded by saying, and I say they, these questions again have been posed to the Lajna. The woman whose husband dies after the marriage contract, yet before consummation, must still observe the waiting mourning period, because simply by the conclusion of the contract, she becomes his wife and falls under the command of the verse in Al-Baqarah 234, those of you who die and leave wives behind, they shall wait for 4 months and 10 days. And they went on to explain, she also falls under the hadith that Al-Bukhari and Muslim recorded, in which the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam said, it is not allowed for a woman to mourn for a dead person for more than 3 days, except if it is for her husband, in which case it is for 4 months and 10 days. Then the ulama concluded by saying, Ahmed and the compilers of the Sunnah recorded that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam decreed concerning Buru bint Washiq, a woman whose husband had died before consummation, that she must observe the waiting period and that she was entitled to inheritance from him. So again, she was to observe the waiting period and she was entitled to inheritance from him. Sheikh Ibn al-Jabri was asked, Ibtisam bint, forgive me, I've got some congestion here, please forgive me for this, subhanAllah. Ibtisam bint Nasr asked if it is allowed for a widow during her mourning period to answer the phone, given that she could not know if the person on the line is a man or a woman, and what is obligatory upon a woman during her mourning waiting period. So Sheikh Ibn Jabri responded by saying, the woman in her mourning period must avoid beautification in the form of beautiful clothing, jewelry, makeup, kuhl, and so forth. She must not leave her house except due to necessity. She must not use perfume or incense. She must not go in front of men she is not related to. It is allowed for her to walk throughout her house and the adjoining parts of her house. She may go up to the roof and so forth. If she needs to talk on the phone or something similar, there is no harm. If she realizes that the person calling is just one of those men who is trying to find out more about particular women, then she should get off the line as quickly as possible. It is allowed for her to speak from behind a curtain with her male relatives who are not mahram, or over the phone. In the same way, it is allowed for her when she is not in her mourning period. And again, this was answered by Sheikh Ibn al-Jabri rahimahullah. So the next question is being posed to Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, and it was asked, is it allowed to wear black as a sign of grief for the deceased, especially if it is the woman's husband? So the Sheikh responded by saying, wearing black at the time of affliction is a display which is wrong and has no basis. During times of affliction, one must say what is sanctioned by the Sharia. We belong to Allah, and to Allah we return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah, reward me during my affliction and give me a replacement better than this. And if he says that with faith and expecting reward, Allah will reward him for that and replace her with someone better. However, wearing a specific color or a specific clothing, such as black clothing and so forth, is a baseless act. It is therefore wrong and blameworthy. So again, regarding black, because someone has died, the Sheikh said that wearing a specific color, such as black clothing, so forth, is a baseless act, and therefore wrong and blameworthy. So now the final question regarding the mourning period. Sheikh Uthaymeen was asked, I was married for 40 years and I have 5 children. My husband passed away on 5/12/1985, but I did not observe my mourning period due to some work I had to perform related to my husband and my children. After 4 months, I began my mourning, that is on 9/12/1985. After just 1 month, something happened to me that forced me to go out of my house. Does that 1 month count as a part of my waiting mourning period? Is my observing of the waiting mourning period 4 months after his death valid or not? You must understand that I was forced to go out to fulfill some work since I do not have anyone to take care of my household. So the Sheikh responded by saying, that action on your part is a forbidden act. It is obligatory upon the woman to begin her waiting and mourning period at the time that she hears about the death of her husband. It is not allowed to delay it based on Allah's statement, which is again in Al-Baqarah 234. Those of you who die and leave wives behind, they shall wait for 4 months and 10 days. The Shaykh concluded by saying, delaying it for 4 months and then beginning your waiting period is a sin and disobedience of Allah. You only perform 10 days of your mourning. What you did beyond that is not considered part of the mourning period. Hence, you must repent to Allah and increase your good deeds so that Allah may forgive you. Once the time for the waiting mourning period has passed, it is not an act that may be made up later. One more time. Once the time for the waiting mourning period has passed, it is not an act that may be made up later. Now we turn to oaths and vows. So we open with the question posed to Sheikh bin Baz. Many times when I speak, I say by Allah, I say wallahi. Is this considered an oath? And how do I expiate it if I have violated it? So the Sheikh responded by saying, if a responsible Muslim male, adult, or female adult often repeat the words wallahi by doing, for doing or avoiding something, while saying so intentionally and purposefully, like saying, by Allah, I will visit so and so. Then when he breaks that oath by not doing what he swore he would do, or not avoiding what he swore he would avoid, then he must make the expiation for a broken vow. The expiation is to feed or clothe 10 poor people or to free a slave. One must give a half of a sa'i of a staple food of a country, such as dates, rice, or otherwise. Half a sa'i of half a sa'i is 1.5 kilograms. And as for clothing, it refers to what is sufficient for prayer, such as a shirt, waistcloth, overgarment. If a person is not able to do any of these three, then he must fast 3 days. And this is based upon the verse found in Al-Ma'idah 79, 89, where Allah has stated, as is interpreted, Allah will not punish you for what is unintentional in your oaths, but He will punish you for your deliberate oaths. For its expiation, feed 10 poor persons on a scale of the average of that which you feed your own families, or clothe them, or manumit a slave. But whosoever cannot afford that, then he should fast 3 days. That is the expiation for the oaths which you have sworn, and protect your oaths, meaning do not swear much. Then the Sheikh said, however, if the swearing flows on the tongue without any intent or resolve, it is considered meaningless speech. There is no expiation in that case. And this is based on the beginning of the above verse that states, Allah will not punish you for what is unintentional in your oaths. One expiation is sufficient for numerous oaths if they were in reference to one act, as was mentioned above. However, if they were in respect to different acts, then for each one must make a separate expiation. For example, if a person said, by Allah, I will visit so-and-so, or by Allah, I will not talk to so-and-so, and by Allah, I will beat so-and-so. If he breaks one of them, he must do an expiation. If he broke all of them, he must make an expiation for each one separately. And again, this was answered by Sheikh bin Baz. So then the Sheikh was asked, I have many children, and I sometimes swear to them not to do a certain act, but they do not listen, and or respond. Do I have to make an expiation in that case? So the Sheikh responded by saying, if you swear with respect to your children or anyone else with a serious and intentional oath that they should do something or not do something, and they violate that oath, then you must make the expiation. And this is based upon Allah's statement, again from Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah will not punish you for what is unintentional in your oaths, but He will punish you for your deliberate oaths. For its expiation, feed 10 poor persons on a scale of the average of that which you feed your own families, or clothe them, or manumit a slave. But whosoever cannot afford that, then he should fast 3 days. That is the expiation for the oaths. When you have sworn, and protect your oaths. Do not swear much. So the Sheikh went on to say, however, if one swore to do or to avoid something and then found the opposite of what he swore to do to be better, there is no harm in breaking that oath and performing the expiation. And this is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, if you make an oath and then find that it is better to do otherwise, then expiate your oath and do something that is, and do the thing that is best. And this is recorded by Al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, rahimahullah. This again was answered by Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah. The next question has been posed to the Lajna, and it was asked of them. A woman vowed that if she gave birth to a healthy baby, and it lived for at least 1 year, she would then fast for a year. Such did occur, and the baby lived for more than a year, but she is not able to perform the fast. So they responded by saying, their response to her was as follows. There is no doubt that to make a vow of obedience is an act of worship. Allah has praised those who fulfill such vows. In Surah Al-Insan, verse 7, they are those who fulfill their vows, and they fear a day whose evil will be widespreading. Then he said, it is confirmed that the Prophet alayhi salam said, whoever makes a vow to obey Allah should obey him. Whoever makes a vow to disobey must not disobey him. Again, whoever makes a vow to disobey Allah must not disobey him. They want to explain. A man made a vow to sacrifice a camel at a certain location. He came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him, was there an idol from the time of ignorance that was worshipped there? He said, no. He then said, was there a celebration from the celebrations there? He said, no. So the Prophet ﷺ then said, fulfill your oath. There is no fulfilling of oaths that are disobedience to Allah or concerning something that a human does not possess. So they want to explain further. The one who is asking the question mentioned that she vowed to fast a whole year. Fasting a whole year is a continuous type of fasting that's considered a type of permanent fasting, and permanent or continuous fasting is disliked. It is confirmed in the Sahih that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever performs a perpetual fast neither fasted nor broke his fast. There is no doubt that a disliked form of worship is a type of disobedience to Allah. Therefore, one does not fulfill an oath to perform such an act. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, if a person vows to perform an act of worship that is disliked, like praying the entire night or fasting the entire day, it is not obligatory to fulfill such an oath. They concluded by saying, therefore, the questioner must make an expiation for the oath by feeding 10 poor people with a half of a sa' of dates or other common staple foods of the land. If she is not able to, then she should fast 3 consecutive days. Now Sheikh Ibn al-Jibreen was asked, what is the ruling concerning delaying the expiation for a broken oath after the condition that was stated was fulfilled? For example, if a person said, I vow to Allah to fast 5 days if I recover from my illness, and then he recovers but delays his fasting for those days. Also understand that he did not specify any time period. Does he have to fast those 5 days consecutively? Does he have an expiation due to his delay, even though his intention was not to deny what he had vowed? So the Sheikh responded by saying, it is obligatory to fulfill one's oaths of an act of worship, such as fasting, charity, i'tikaf, hajj, and reciting the Quran. If the oath is conditional, such as upon becoming healthy or returning from a journey, he should fulfill the vow as soon as possible. If he delays it and then does it, there is no sin upon him for delaying it. If he dies and had yet to fulfill the oath, his heirs after him should fulfill it. However, one should fulfill such vows as quickly as possible, so the Muslim fulfills these obligations upon him. So this will bring an end to our program this evening. We will conclude the segment on vows, inshallah, and oaths next week, bi'idhnillah. And then we will go into hijab, questions related to hijab, dress, and adornment. After that, inshallah, as we continue the book, Fataawaa al-Mar'a. I ask Allah to reward us for our attempts to make this knowledgeable as easily accessible as possible. And I ask Allah to forgive me for any mistakes that may have been made this evening in this presentation. For certainly anything that was incorrect was from myself and shaitan. So again, I ask Allah's forgiveness for that. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Exalted are you, O Allah, and all praises for you. I bear witness that there is no true God but you. And I ask your forgiveness and I repent to you. Ameen. Inshallah, we look forward to next week. Bi'idhnillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.